he just didn't have much of a backbone. And I am not trying to write a shadow daddy. I love me a good shadow daddy, but he is not meant to be a shadow daddy. Hi, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Alexis, and I am currently working on draft 3 of what I hope will be my debut fantasy novel, which I refer to as Project Hourglass. I have some updates. If you saw my last video about missing my deadline, I have more updates that I'm feeling kind of torn about. So last night I had writing session with my friend Mason. We've been writing partners for almost 2 years. We started writing a book at the same time. We started out as mom friends, our kids go to the same school and we both are very goal oriented. And so we decided, okay, we're going to write a book together, our own books, but together as partners. Anyway, so she's writing an upmarket Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I'm writing what I would consider to be a high fantasy. She is currently querying, and I'm currently on draft 3. And I want to preface all of this with, I am so happy for her. I'm thrilled for her. I'm so excited that she is where she is in her journey. But as I feel is pretty normal to be expected, I'm definitely feeling behind. We started this journey together and now I'm still in the thick of figuring out this book and my characters. And thankfully after draft 2, I have a much clearer vision of where the beginning, middle, and end. Okay, so plot, I feel really good about. Where I'm stumbling, sort of, or what's going slower, is writing these character relationships, how they move around each other, how they interact with each other. Something I had to consider the other night when I was writing is, with Eris's position in her world, how do people respond to her in public, that kind of thing. And so there's just a lot of moving parts and little details that I am really having to not only keep track of. It's not so much keeping track, but it's just making sure that I'm thinking about these things so that the story feels immersive. But it just makes it slow going, because I really want this book to be the best that I can make it. If this is going to be my debut and let's say it does get published, when people read it, I want them to be like, damn, that's a hell of a debut, So I'm not trying to rush. That's where I was going with that. I'm not trying to rush this process just because I am feeling behind. But I am feeling behind and it makes me feel sad because I feel she and I are not in alignment anymore. And last night was great. We were just brainstorming and we were catching up just on regular things too and talking about the querying trenches and agents and all this different stuff. It was still great. It's not we have to totally ditch writing session. But we did have a conversation about pumping the brakes on her giving me chapter feedback for right now, because the way that we've done it up to this point is when we were both in the thick of writing, we would go over a chapter or a couple of chapters of each other's work each week and comment on it and talk about it and brainstorm and yada yada. But now that she doesn't have any material for me to review and I'm really trying to iron out these details, it's no longer, does this character make sense? Does the story flow? Yada yada. It's just this nittier grittier stuff that I sort of just need to wrestle with. Having her give me feedback week to week just isn't helpful. And I didn't want to admit it. I definitely think I'd been feeling that way for a while. I think it was partially why I've been dragging my feet a little bit on draft 3, because I wrote half of this draft in less than 60 days, but I was trying to hit that 60-day deadline, finish my draft in 60 days. So technically I have half the manuscript in existence, but I'm going back through it from the beginning. I'm currently on chapter 6 out of 22 or something like that. And I'm just seeing those gaps where I'm okay, yes, this is better than draft 2, but it's still missing, X, Y, and Z. And it's good because I'm catching this and I want to take the time on it. I wouldn't consider myself to be in revisions. And actually my writing partner had said, and it kind of hurt my ego, but she's you're still kind of discovery writing to a certain degree. And she's not wrong. Some parts I am, some parts I'm not, but there's still so much that I'm learning about my characters, especially. Why would she make this decision? is that the decision she would make based on her background, her training, her upbringing, etc.? How would these people react to her based on how they move through the world and yada yada. Just all of this stuff, this very trying to make the world feel lived in, because that's what I want. Like, the types of books that I love to read have a lot of texture, and sometimes you have to read between the lines, and you kind of are dropped into this world, and things are revealed as you go, as you read. I like that kind of book. Um, but I'm just realizing it comes with a lot of work, which I like. I like the work. But what was happening was I felt like I felt like I had to hurry to get the chapter ready for our weekly meetup. And then that would cause me to procrastinate because I can't rush this part in any form or fashion. But then I was feeling badly because I didn't want to have to call off writing session. Again, it's been almost 2 years of this. I'm not ready to let that part go, and I don't think we need to. Um, but it was. I think it was a little bit of a bruise to my ego to say, like, I need to pump the brakes. I need more time. I can't have you be giving me feedback, especially on the nitty-gritty stuff like grammar, you know, like line level, flow, and that sort of thing. Like, it's super helpful, but it's like right now I'm still just wrestling with, like, you know, all the questions that I've already posed in this video that I won't repeat again. And so that was hard. That was new in my writing journey. It's still difficult sitting here and talking about it. I'm just like, I wish I could have just kept pace. But again, that's something else Mason and I were talking about is we're just writing different stories. It required different levels of writing, I guess, requires different amounts of time, and that's okay. I'm not behind in my own journey, but I'm an Enneagram 3, and if you're familiar with that, like, very goal-oriented, very, you know, not dependent, but I thrive on external validation and stuff, even if it is just, like, from my writing partner, and so being in this place where I have to admit that's not helpful and that I need more time. It is just hard. And I know I've already said that like a million times. So sorry for repeating myself, but that's where I'm at. And it's been hanging heavy over my head. I feel kind of like I'm failing a little bit. I thought that I would feel differently at this part in the process. And because I don't have any like published author friends at this time, I don't really have anyone that I can talk to and be like, did you feel this way too? Like, and author friends who have published stories like the one that I'm attempting to write, the high fantasy, high detail, multiple characters, that kind of thing. Like, my book is in a multi point of view. It's occasionally dual point of view, but I mean, throughout the story, there are just multiple characters. Oh, that sounds dumb. Of course, there's multiple characters. Basically, like, for a hot minute, there's like a group of them, and and their dynamics, and they're having to like function within each other or around each other, and whatever. Like, it's just a lot. Like, there's definitely like an ensemble cast thing kind of happening right now, and I wish that I knew someone who had written a book like this that I could hit up and just be like, is this normal? Am I behind? Am I slow? Is all the things that I'm feeling okay and part of the process? Do I need to do something else? Like, do I need to shelve this and come back to it when I'm a little bit more experienced? I mean, I'm definitely not going to do that. This is definitely meant to be my debut, but it is hard. I feel like I am just kind of navigating through the dark, and I'm totally here to trust the process. But at the same time, it would be nice to be told, like, no, this is normal. Like, you're good. You're not crazy. You're not failing. This is what I did to get through. This is some, checks that you could do to make sure you're on track. I'm currently having my husband read this version. He didn't get to read much of draft 2. He's kind of my ideal readership. Like, he loves to read high fantasy, like Jay Kristoff and Brandon Sanderson. He also loves like Stephen King and John Gwynne and that sort of thing. And so I've kind of held off letting him read anything until I felt way more solid in it. But he's reading draft 3 because I felt like I needed a fantasy perspective. Because that's the other thing. My writing partner doesn't really read high fantasy at all, which is totally fine. But she's totally like, she loves upmarket. I think her favorite genre is technically like contemporary romance, which is great. But with some of the, I don't know, details, nuances of high fantasy, it is kind of nice to get some feedback from someone who is familiar with that. And even just down to like understanding reveal pacing and that sort of thing. And so far, he's really liked it, which is great. But then I also feel like I can't fully trust him because he's my husband. And I'm like, but you're biased. Although he's definitely given me like harsh critique in the past. Like, he's not afraid to be honest, which I love. I appreciate that because I don't want to question if someone is just like blowing smoke up my butt. I want to make this story better. I don't just want to hear, oh, it's so great, you know? But he has been really enjoying it. And I think maybe there is a part of me that's like feeling that imposter syndrome and isn't really ready to accept that I'm doing a good job with it because I do feel so lost or it's not coming easily. And not that I feel like it needs to be easy, but I just can't tell if I'm nailing these things that I want to nail. Like, I don't know. I just feel very chaotic if you cannot tell. And so that's kind of where I am. Writing session's going to look a little different moving forward. I think what we kind of decided with that is, you know, she is querying. She's actively querying. And I think what I'm going to do is kind of start prepping a list of agents I would like to query when I get to that point, just so I know. Maybe like a spreadsheet, you know, agents I would like to query, what their requirements are, like 2 pages, 10 pages, 50 pages of my manuscript when I get to that point. Just so we have something to get together and chat about and the whole shebang. Oh my God. Did you see that bee? It was huge. I've never sat out here on my porch to record, but I really am loving it. Like, I'm loving the plants. I love my plants. I'm loving the lighting. But that was a gigantic bee, and I would prefer that it does not land on me. So yeah. But other than that, you know, I am starting chapter 6. Again, I've written all the way through chapter 22, but I'm really trying to bolster these chapters with immersion, what's happening around her as she's, you know, working out her plan. How are these characters responding to her based on their own motivations and backgrounds? You know, even just down to the atmosphere. Like, I think I'm good at writing descriptions of things, but you know, something my husband did call out in one of my chapters was like, okay, you know, she's doing, you know, XYZ in this cabin because she's on a ship for the first bit of the book. But like, what is cueing us into the fact that there are other people on this boat? What makes it feel alive? And so it's like adding the atmospheric, you know, descriptions of like the wood planks creaking overhead, or, you know, the waves crashing against the hull, you know, as she's existing. And that's what I'm really trying to add is I really am trying to make these chapters feel alive. And so that's my focus right now, as well as, you know, nailing these character dynamics, making sure I'm staying true to the voice of each character, again, based on who they are, based on their character backgrounds. And it's funny, one of my characters, my writing partner kept saying to me, like, from beginning to end of my book, this character just reads kind of sus. And I was like, no, he's not sus. Like, you're supposed to love this character. And, you know, she told me, she's like, I do really like him, but I just feel like he's also a little sus. Like, give him a little side eye. And so I was playing around with that idea of making him a little sus. And I fleshed out his backstory and it totally fits. So I'm really excited about that. It just makes him so much more interesting, and it makes a whole lot less of some things that happen in my book less convenient. It also gives him a very clear motivation and desire as to why he wants to be involved with my main character. And I'm really thrilled about that. That feels good. And it's fun writing these scenes now, knowing what I know about him and his new backstory. I don't even know if I can call it new. I've just sort of tweaked it a bit because I had him fleshed out before. But again, I was like, well, he's meant to be a good guy. So here's his sort of good guy backstory. And now it's like, no, he's kind of got like side-eye backstory and he's got secrets but it's still woven into what I had him involved with before. So that feels good. I've got my love interest's backstory way more defined, so it makes sense why he, has the internal wounds that he has. And but also too, just making sure, you know, that he has the backbone that I want him to have, because in draft one, so my love interest in the book, I have been calling him a cinnamon roll on social media. And what I mean by that is like he's a good guy and he does the right thing and you just love him. But what ended up happening is I made him like too ooey gooey in my first draft, and not like love bombing or anything like that. Like this is a slow burn relationship situation, but he just didn't have much of a backbone. Like he was like too soft. He didn't have any edges whatsoever. And I am not trying to write a shadow daddy. Like I love me a good shadow daddy, but he is not meant to be a shadow daddy. But in this draft, like, you know, he can hold his own. Like he's not a pushover. He is not a doormat. And I just love that for him. And he is so fun to write because I get to write this kind of, again, cinnamon roll, golden retriever-esque man who is also a man and will put my main character in her place when it's needed, but in a I'm on your team way, not like a I'm your daddy way. I don't know. I don't even know if that's a thing, but I am feeling good about that. I'm trying to focus on the positives of where I'm at in my journey, and right now I am feeling good about who they are. I'm still kind of like iffy about my main character Eris, only because I just want you to love her. Like, I think that's really what it boils down to, is I keep doubting my ability to craft a character that my readers resonate with and love. And also the fact that she kind of comes from a royal background. Like, she's not a princess. I've got like a feudal monarchy type vibe going on. So like there's the king and then there's these territories and they're ruled by their own houses, but they're not like queens or kings or princesses. So, that in and of itself is kind of like, I've been trying to wrap my mind around that. But still, she comes from a position of rank and she has responsibilities. She has a lot of responsibilities based on her role in her territory. And writing that, not having the experience myself, has been a little tricky, because it's like the way that I look at the world through my filter, I know the reasons I make my decisions as a mom, as a wife, as someone who grew up as an only child, as someone who grew up in an emotionally unstable home. But like, I don't have the weight of a, kingdom resting on my shoulders. Though I will say, Mason, I thought this was such a good parallel. Like, boom, light bulb went off in my head. She's like, but you know what the weight of motherhood is like. You know what it's like to constantly think about your kids and that sort of thing. And so I'm going to try and parallel Eris's journey and the weight of her responsibilities with how I feel about the weight about motherhood. Especially, I got pregnant with my first child when I was 21. So I was young. I had a lot of responsibility. I had to grow up really, really fast. And I felt that weight too. Like, I was one of those people who was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant and I cannot let this child down. Like, that was me. And so that was really heavy at times. Hang on. Amazon's about to drop off a package. So yeah, that got really, really heavy at times. And so I want to try and funnel that energy into my narrative and into my character, just to try and deepen those layers of what she has to go through, in a way that I can understand. Because again, that has been sort of an obstacle for me, and feeling like, am I writing her as someone who has the filter of this lifestyle? And I don't know, like, I think I've done okay, but there's definitely been times where I've gotten comments where it's like, but would she do this if she has training? Would she do this if this is at stake? And I'm like, fuck, like probably not, or it needs to be tweaked or what have you. And again, I'm just trying to remind myself this is all part of the process. This is the first book that I've ever written, start to finish. I used to write all the time when I was a kid. Actually wrote like half a novel when I was like 11 or something like that. And I still remember the name. I still remember the premise. It's something that maybe I'll like try and write and build upon now with a fully developed brain. But at the same time, obviously, for the sake of what I'm talking about, this is my very first book. And there's just things that I don't know. I didn't go to school for writing. I don't have any education in this sense. All I have is, the writing that I've done for fun on top of all of the reading that I do and everything that I've learned from listening to other writers talk, excuse me. So trying to give myself some grace. I think if I can stop feeling like I'm behind, that will really, really help me as I continue my writing journey. When I started writing a book, I told myself, I really, really don't want to take forever on this, in the sense that I don't want to just twiddle my thumbs or become a perfectionist and then never put myself out there and then work on this for like 10 years. And so it'll be 2 years this December. That's crazy. It'll be 2 years this December, which isn't a crazy amount of time. But I mean, like, the clock is kind of ticking. And so I'm like, how long is this going to take? And at the end of the day, it'll take however long it takes, because I'm not willing to rush it. But I need to stop letting this sort of hang over my head, because it's definitely like ruining my writing experience. I don't want this to be the way that I feel, trying to bring this novel to life. And so that's just where I'm at. I wish it wasn't so much of a mental spiral. I feel like for the most part, I do a good job of like, keep on keeping on, but I definitely feel very hung up on this. And I just think I'm putting too much pressure on myself. And I think also it's the lack of direction. Like, again, I know I said this earlier, but I don't really have anyone to ask. I don't have anyone who's already been here to tell me that I'm doing a good job or I'm on track. Obviously, it's sweet to hear it from my husband, and it's sweet to hear it from my writing partner, and I value that. But it's not the same as being told by someone who's been here and succeeded and can say, nope, you're good. It's just part of the process. So if you're that person, if you're a published author and you would like to leave me some words of wisdom, please drop them in the comments or DM me or something. I would so appreciate it. But yeah, if you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I love ranting in front of the camera and sharing the highs and lows of my writing journey with you. I don't want anyone to ever come to my channel or see my social media and think like, oh wow, she's got it all together. Like it's just been smooth sailing. It definitely hasn't been smooth sailing. I do think, I feel in my heart of hearts it's been 100% worth it. And that's why even now as I'm struggling, I know I'm going to go sit down and work on chapter 6. But it's definitely a roller coaster. And so if you're feeling that way in your own journey, you're not alone. I need you to know you're not alone at all. So yeah, until next time, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.